All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. And just like that, we've gone from 68 teams to 16 teams in this year's NCAA tournament. One of the things that has really stood out to a lot of people, you look at the struggles of the Big Ten Conference. The Big Ten entered the NCAA tournament with 9 teams, and only Michigan got to the Sweet 16. And of course, the biggest surprises there were Ohio State, Illinois, and Iowa being done so early. Now, one question that plenty of people are going to ask, and that is, was the Big Ten overrated this year? I look at it and I see it and I say, you know what? The Big Ten was the best conference for the regular season in college basketball this year. But you know what? Sometimes in March, it simply does not work out. You look at it, going back to the play-in games, Michigan State was up big on UCLA, and UCLA came back and ultimately won that game in overtime. And then, of course, when the big dance started, you look at it, Iowa, of course, they faced a team in Oregon who got a first-round bye because VCU had the positive test, and that could have worked one of two different ways. Number one, Oregon, could have come out rusty versus Iowa yesterday, but Oregon came out hot and they just shot the lights out of the Hawkeyes defense. You look at it also with Maryland. Nobody really expected Maryland to go that far because they had to face a tough Alabama team in the second round, and that was it. Wisconsin, they dominated North Carolina in the opening round, but then they faced a tough Baylor team in the second round, and a lot of people feel that Baylor has what it takes to win it all. Then one of the big shockers, of course, was Ohio State falling to Oral Roberts, because there were people who felt that the Buckeyes could give Baylor a run for their money in that South region. But, you look at the Midwest, and there were people who expected the Illini to get through, but they faced a very tough Loyola Chicago team in the second round. And, of course, both of these teams, call the state of Illinois home. So, it's one of those where, you look at it, and Illinois Chicago had something to prove, and they did. And, Illinois Chicago, this is an organization, or a team rather, that got to the Final Four several years ago, and they got what it takes to make another run again this year. Of course, Rutgers, they found a way to blow that game versus Houston a couple of nights ago in the second round, and that's why they're done. But again, Iowa, they simply got run off the floor by Oregon. Illinois faced a very, very tough Illinois-Chicago team. And, of course, Ohio State, nobody saw that coming from Oral Roberts this year. Overall, it was a down year for the ACC. I know that the ACC was able to get 7 teams into this tournament. And, of course, it's just Syracuse and Florida State who remain. But, let's not forget, not even Duke made the tournament this year. North Carolina was an 8 seed. I know that they've, in the past, gotten to the Final Four as an 8 seed. But you look at most of the seeds that the ACC received. They weren't big seeds. Virginia was a high seed. They were a 4, but they got bumped out by Ohio in the first round. But a lot of people did not expect the Cavaliers to make it. The Big 12 really hit the wall. And you look at it, of course, plenty of people are going to be talking about how Kansas got blown out by USC last night. I really did not expect Kansas to win that game, especially with how flat that they came out to start this tournament versus Eastern Washington. A lot of people forget Eastern Washington began that game up 9-0 on the Jayhawks. And, of course, I said, listen, if Kansas is going to come out this flat versus USC, they're going to pay for it. And ultimately, the Jayhawks did. Oklahoma, of course, they faced a very tough Gonzaga team. Not a lot of people expected Oklahoma State to fall off so quickly. But you know what? They got a hot Oregon State team. So, sometimes, you're just facing a hot team this time of the year. And then finally, I look at Texas Tech. Texas Tech had all of the chances and then some to try to get past Arkansas, and they didn't. And, of course, you looked at the way that part of the bracket opened up. Texas Tech really could have made another Final Four run had they gotten to the regional and had to face Baylor, because, once you face conference opponents in this tournament, you basically just throw the rule book out of the window. So, I look at it right now, and it's up to Baylor to try to carry the mantle for the Big 12 conference. But I think the biggest story, aside from the struggles of the Big 10 in this tournament, is the Pac-12. Because, for so many years, we've been down on the Pac-12. We've been talking about what they have not been able to do, the resiliency, the ability to seize the moment. And this year, more than ever, we're seeing it from the Pac-12. USC took care of a tough Drake team in the first round. They blew out Kansas. Now they're going to face Oregon, another Pac-12 team, in the West Regional semifinal. And, of course, right off the bat, the Pac-12 will have at least one team in the Elite Eight. You look at Colorado. Colorado, they ran into a tough team last night versus Florida State. But UCLA, they got past Michigan State in that play-in game. They took care of business versus BYU. And, they took care of business versus Abilene Christian. And I'll tell you like this. Once you get to that East Regional semi, UCLA is going to give Alabama all that they can handle and then some. I think at this point, you just want to throw the seeds out of the window because the Bruins right now are playing some great basketball. And then, of course, we're also going to talk about Oregon State in that Midwest. Oregon State, they won the Pac-12 tournament, one of the last teams to get a bye for the first round of this tournament. They dominated Tennessee. They, were able to, neutralize Cade Cunningham in Oklahoma State. And now they're going to face a game, Loyola Chicago team with a chance to go to the Elite Eight. So, you got to look at what the Pac-12 has done, and you definitely got to give them their props because, like I said, they've been down for so long. But I think ultimately this tournament comes down to Gonzaga and Baylor. Gonzaga and Baylor have been the two best teams in college basketball all season long. They are flat out a step above and maybe even two steps above the competition so far this season. And I think they're going to go out there and it's basically somebody's got to try to knock them off and try to get them on an off night. But that's one thing we've seen over the years. What the great teams can have off nights in the NCAA tournament and be done. And, looking ahead to the Sweet 16, how is Houston going to be able to handle this 2-3 zone of Syracuse? Because, we saw Syracuse take care of a San Diego State team in the first round that isn't known for their perimeter shooting. We saw Syracuse get past a West Virginia team in the second round that isn't known for their shooting. And now they're facing a Houston team in the Sweet 16 that isn't known for shooting as well. And you think about the matchups when it comes down to Jim Boeheim and Kelvin Sampson. And one matchup that I think about, you go back to the 2003 East Regional Final when Syracuse faced Oklahoma. And, of course, at that time, Kelvin Sampson was the head basketball coach at Oklahoma. And Oklahoma was one of the better teams in the nation that year, but they ran into that vaunted 2-3 zone and they couldn't do anything about it. And it's one of those things with Syracuse's zone. When you are unaccustomed to seeing it that often, it really can throw you off. So I think Houston is definitely going to have their hands full in this game. You talk about Loyola Chicago. I know some people might want to peg them as a Cinderella, but this team has everything in place to make a deep run. I mean, they're already in the Sweet 16. But when I say deep run, I'm talking about the Final Four. This tournament so far, 4 double-digit seeds have gotten to the Sweet 16. And I think all 4 of them have legit chances to make a run because I know Oral Roberts is a 15, but at this point, you can't overlook anybody. You can't write anybody off because this is a tournament unlike tournaments that we've seen in the past where, you basically just threw the rule book out of the window more than ever because strange things have happened, and I think strange things are going to continue to happen. So ultimately, at this point, the way things are shaping out, I think Baylor definitely has what it takes to win the South. I don't see Villanova being a problem for them. I really was surprised that Villanova got past Winthrop in the first round. So they're, in my opinion, playing on borrowed time, especially with all of their injuries. I think Arkansas will get past Oral Roberts in the Sweet 16, setting up a old school Southwest Conference matchup between Baylor and Arkansas. But I'm not sure that the Hogs have enough to get past the Bears in that one. I'm looking at the East, and honestly, I think this is UCLA's bracket to lose right now. I think they're going to give Alabama all that they can handle. I think the Big Ten is done because I think Florida State gets past Michigan. And once you get to the Elite Eight, you basically just throw the rule book out of the window. You look at the West. Who's going to slow down Gonzaga? I think Gonzaga will get past Creighton. But then you look at it, USC and Oregon. I mean, you just throw the rule book out the window there once you have foes that are so familiar with one another, but I don't think either one of them has enough to get past the Zags right now. And then finally in the Midwest, I mean, wow. going to this regional, you have an 8, a 12, a 2, and an 11. And of course, on the surface, you'd say, well, the 2 seed is the favorite. I don't think so, because Houston does not match up well with Syracuse's zone. I think the way that Houston beats Syracuse, they got to beat the zone down the floor before the zone sets up. They have to win the transition game if they're going to be able to do it. Loyola Chicago versus Oregon State. This is going to be a doozy right here, because you look at the way that Oregon State's playing right now. You look at the way that Loyola Chicago is playing right now. It really would not surprise me to see this game go to overtime. So I think you're either going to have an 8 versus an 11 in the regional final, or an 11 versus a 12. That is how, like basically, like we've thrown the rule book out of the window so far in this tournament, and I really think that you're going to have a couple of double-digit seeds get to the Final Four. So when it's all said and done, I think we're going to get a pair of 1s in Baylor and Gonzaga, but we're also going to get a pair of 11s in UCLA and Syracuse. This is a type of tournament that we've seen so far. This is the type of tournament that we are going to continue to see, as March Madness is living up to its name in 2021. So folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you subscribers out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. Take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.